Welcome to the Microschools Show, your window on the global microschools movement. Whether you're a teacher with a dream to build a school of your own or a parent looking for a school that will suit your amazing kid, you're sure to be inspired by the creativity and innovation of our guests. I'm your host, Dr. Meryl Leineberger. The Microschools Show was launched to feature guests from all over the globe who have championed personalized learning for students by building a microschool of their own, as well as to spotlight some of the key players in the movement. Today, I'm speaking with Keyanna Moreau, founder of Choice Preparatory Academy in Georgia. The CHOICE acronym, by the way, stands for Choosing How Our Innovative Children Are Educated. Choice Preparatory Academy is a non-traditional hybrid homeschool academy that meets every student's needs. CPA staff consist of professional educators with various subject degrees, including special education, master's degrees, and specialist degrees. So what makes Choice Preparatory Academy unique? It's a welcoming community that values relationships and partnerships between home and school. CPA provides a safe, nurturing environment that enhances learning while recognizing the uniqueness of each student. It also challenges students to step into roles of leadership and service. Choice offers a full lineup of offerings in academics while nurturing a sense of community in a close-knit, stable learning environment. Welcome to the show, Keyanna.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Well, you are so welcome. So usually we start off this interview by asking, can you tell us and our listeners a little bit more about yourself and what inspired you to create Choice Preparatory Academy?
Absolutely. So I live in Snellville, Georgia, and I have my bachelor's degree in early child education, and I'm currently enrolled working on my master's for curriculum development. I started Choice because of my children. I have been homeschooling for maybe about 7 to 8 years before I started Choice. My daughter, who's now 20 and in her second year of college, she was struggling with different concepts in math and things like that in middle school. And then I just saw this drastic change when she left elementary to go to middle school. And I said, something's going on. So I pulled her out just to see where she was educational wise. And I realized that she had no foundational skills in math. Even though she was a straight A student, she had all honor rolls, she was just a sweet child. She's just an all around good kid. So I think that had a lot of effect on her grades. So that was concerning for me. And also I had my oldest son, because I have 4 kids, and my oldest son was being bullied. He would come home and he would always, say that he was hungry, and I couldn't understand why. And I would always ask him, why are you hungry? What's happening with your lunch? And he was like, well, such and such is taking my lunch. And I was shocked. And so I asked his teacher about it, and they didn't know what was going on. Come to find out, this little boy was taking his lunch every day, and nobody noticed it. Nobody knew what was going on. So that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I said, you know what, I can do this. I have an education degree. I can teach my kids. So I started my research with homeschool. I looked at different curriculums. It took me about 6 months. So my first thing was to get my kids to a place where they could fall in love with learning again. Because at that point, it was just, something they knew they had to do. It wasn't about learning. It was something they knew mommy and dad, they wanted to please mommy and dad. So I took about 6 months to just get them to a point where they fell in love with learning. It became a part of their everyday lives. So after we did that for a while, and I seen how my kids progressed and, how far along they came, I started to really venture out into thinking, well, I can do this for other kids. So my daughter wanted to do something where she had a little bit more social interaction. So she went to what we call, what I call, in the schools themselves call, they're hybrid schools. So they're homeschool academies for children that are homeschooled, and they go about 2 or 3 times a week, and they have a la carte selection of classes you can take. So my daughter went there, and this one particular school that she went to, I reached out to the owner and asked her, could I start a lower school program within her school? because she had only middle and high school. She never wanted to be bothered with the little kids. And that's what my degree is in. It's in early childhood education. And I told her, I don't have a student base right now, but I have two boys that are in school that are my children. And if I had to come with my two boys every day, I was going to show up. All I needed was a space. That first year, we had 10 kids. By the end of that year, we had 12. So that was the beginning of choice. So the second year, we were still in the building, but she decided she wanted to retire. She wanted to sell her building, and she didn't want to do the instructional part anymore. So that's when I ventured off and I got my own building. I have a small storefront, and right now we have 23 kids from second grade all the way up to 11th grade. Wow. And that's how Choice got started.
Oh my goodness. I'll tell you what, it's amazing. You're not alone in the fact that you're a mom who's trained as an educator, who decided that school wasn't working for her kids and started teaching them herself, and then let that grow into serving other people's kids. It's a really common story. I think it's like we become educators, we know what best practices are, we maybe get frustrated that we can't do them in our classrooms. So when our kids come along, we know they're not going to get that stuff. We do it for them. And then people around us start to notice that we got something going on.
Yes.
That's pretty good. And then they want to be part of that. That's amazing. I love hearing that. And I love hearing that you were, I don't know if you could hear this yourself. I think it's really nice to have people reflect it back. It's a really bold thing for a parent to say, my child isn't enjoying school. I'm going to pull them out and figure out what's going on. And it's really, really common that the quiet kids sometimes fall through the cracks.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know what? I think you muted yourself. Unmute yourself. You're still muted. Hold on. I think you accidentally, there we go. Good.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm nervous. Okay, so absolutely, because she was always on the honor roll. Her teachers had nothing but great things to say about her. But as she got older and we started to talk about her past experience, she would tell me, well, Mom, as long as I turned in my homework,
Oh, you just got muted again. There you go.
I'm sorry. And she said that it was because she was just a good kid, as long as she turned in her homework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I'll tell you what, Keyanna, my husband and his late wife homeschooled their two daughters, and it was for that very same reason. Both girls were very quiet, very well-behaved girls. And my husband said he knew that they were going to actually be overlooked. And I think that that's what probably happened to your daughter, that, she was so well behaved, she did what she was asked, that the teachers didn't actually realize she hadn't mastered things.
Absolutely. And that's what was going on with Ronnie. And I was so,
there you go.
I was so heartbroken by that, because as an educator, you just automatically assume those are the things you're supposed to pick up on. As a parent and an educator, it's a guilt that sets in, like, how could you let this happen to your child? She's going to the 6th grade. She should know her multiplication facts, and it was just an assumption, because she was a straight A student, she would know those things. Mm-hmm. And as we started to homeschool and I gave her different techniques, and come to find out she's very artsy and she loves hands-on, she needed something more concrete. So that abstract concepts in math would become easier for her. So we used a lot of Montessori material with her. And within a couple of months, she was mastering skills that she didn't even realize she could.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Choice, and I want to hear what Choice is like. So, because you started out working with your kids, but then now it's morphed into having 20 some kids, some other students. How would you describe Choice? And is it a micro school, or is it a homeschool co-op, or something else? Because it sounds like in Georgia, your regulations may be a little bit different.
Actually, we do have homeschool co-ops in Georgia, but Choice is actually a micro school in Georgia. we actually, you can have what they call a non-traditional accreditation for homeschool students. So that's what I do. I actually provide the students with something a little bit more structured where they can come in with the teachers and tutors and they can sit down, 5 days a week, and they can have that because a lot of my parents that are working wanted something that was homeschool based, something that's individualized for their children, but not a private school, something that's tailored to their kids. So that's what Choice is. It's a micro school for homeschool students.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we actually started the recording that, in Georgia, you were saying that private schools have become very much like our public schools. They've got very rigid curriculum, large classes. So there's really, you're paying for just maybe a more elite version of the same thing versus what you're doing is completely individualized, right?
Absolutely. A good portion of my children have some type of specific learning disability. So they needed something more individualized for them. So the concept of my school is we actually group the kids by ability more so than grade level. That way they don't feel like, oh, well, you're in the fifth grade and you're doing this work, or oh, you're in the second grade and you're doing fourth grade work. So we take their reading ability, but we do it by groups of grades. So we'll say second through fourth grade or second through fifth grade. We'll get kids all in the same reading level and we'll group them together, especially if they need intervention, like if they have dyslexia or dysgraphia. And we do have specialists that come in that we have sent out and had them tested by those levels, and actually we do our remediation that way. But our program is set up for kids to be where they are. We take them from where they are, build their confidence, and then we move them ahead. Because if you have a child that's been beaten down and just feel like they're not capable of learning, or they're not capable of moving past where they are, and they have just took on this persona that this is what I am, I can't learn, I can't read, then no matter what you do, it's not going to work. So first thing we do, we build their confidence. We take them from where they are. We build their confidence in those levels, and then we start to remediate where the holes and the gaps are and move them ahead. And that has been very successful for us.
Well, I can imagine that it's successful because you're not being forced to keep moving through curriculum to follow a scope sequence. You don't have these big standardized tests coming that you have to prepare kids for, whether they're ready for them or not. You're actually just helping the child where they are to grow.
Absolutely.
And no wonder the kids are becoming excited about learning again. I mean, nobody. I don't know why it's okay that this is happening to kids, to allow them to fail. Nobody wants to feel like a failure. No adult,
No. Absolutely. Because I know that feeling to walk on a job and they give you something, they give you like a 4 weeks training, and then they throw you out on the floor and it's like, okay, go do what you need to do. And there was no mastery skill in anything that you were supposed to do. It's just like, press this button and this is going to do that. And it's like, okay, well, can you give me the background information of why this does this? So I took that experience and I incorporated it into my school, because kids, they need to master skills. I know when I was in a brick and mortar, it was more so, no, we need to get through this curriculum and we need to make sure that they're passing these standardized tests, or you won't get a contract next year. So that's your concentration, because this is how I eat. This is how I provide for my family. So I need to make sure these kids get great scores on their standardized tests. But then they go to the next grade and they haven't mastered any skills, and you're starting all over again. So my foundation is built on mastery skills, and we do that with a lot of hands-on, a lot of project-based. We're kind of eclectic when it comes to our teaching styles, because we use Montessori, we use Charlotte Mason. We just use a combination of things depending on where the child is and what their strengths are.
I think what's really powerful, Keyanna, is that you have this broad range of experience and knowledge of teaching methods and materials, and then you just meet the kid where they are and you use the parts that actually work. It's, if you think back to when you were teaching in the public school and you had professional development, you would have I'm sure you had presentations or back in college on differentiated instruction or
Absolutely.
individualized learning. And but the ability, you probably got into the classroom and then found it was almost impossible to actually do that because
Yes.
of curriculum, because of scope and sequence, because of standards and standardized tests, and because of the number of kids in the classroom. So now you own your own school and you can really do, what you need to do.
Absolutely. Because one of the things that we found, because where we are, the age of children that we have, they love technology. So I know a lot of even in some public schools, they kind of shy away from technology, but my kids love technology. So we take certain types of curriculum and we allow them to use that curriculum. And then we assess the data that comes from that curriculum. And then we create all these hands-on projects and all these materials for them to go back and practice those skills. So when if they do decide to go back in public school, we know that they have a strong foundation, and we've reiterated that skill in a concrete manner and abstract. So they have the best of both worlds. It's not just all concrete and it's not just all abstract. It's the best of both worlds. So we use technology and adaptive technology curriculum as well to assist us with making sure that they are progressing and seeing where gaps are, even when we do introduce new concepts. So it's kind of like a hodgepodge of things that work for our kids because they're also different. I mean, you might have 3 kids that our learning styles are the same, but you'll never get a classroom of 23 kids that are all the same ever. Well, from my experience. So
No, you're never going to get a class of 20
yeah,
kids that
exactly.
are all the
So
same.
I
And so,
use
you have to, and what ends up happening in that situation is you have to pick one way to focus,
absolutely.
and hope and pray that it meets the needs of most of the kids. Unfortunately, so many times we teach to the bottom,
Absolutely.
or maybe the middle, but our kids who are advanced are oftentimes bored. Our kids who are struggling oftentimes get farther and farther
Further
behind.
behind.
So
Mhm.
it's just like and it's not for
Cycle.
any fault of the teachers. It's
Absolutely.
they're doing
And
it.
I know a lot of great teachers that would love to be in a situation like this because they could actually use things that they've learned. They can actually meet the needs of the children. And it's just like what you were saying. I have advanced kids that, like, I have a 3rd grader, and she's moving through the math curriculum like this. So I continue to let her move along. She's almost at the end of 4th grade level. She's working on 5th grade math concepts, but she's just really, really good at math. So I continue to let her move on. I don't hold her back because her peers are still at 3rd grade or 4th grade level math concepts. I let her go ahead because that's just her strength. And I don't hold her back. And my kids that are struggling, I make sure they get what they need. And we use prescriptive type of, curriculum and remediation to make sure that we're meeting their needs. So it's just, and they love to come to school. We're just getting on winter break, and they were like, "Well, can't we just come in for like an hour?" And I'm like, "No, I love you. I do love you, but we all, let's just take a break." And they're like, "No," and sometimes my parents, you can see the shock on their face. Like, are they really learning? Because they just love this a little too much. And, one thing I have found that my parents that do transition in from public school are very conditioned to seeing assessments and numbers, and they want to see that. So I do give them this computer-based assessment so they can see the progress and they can see that their children are learning. That's something I've found that's been hard to break from parents looking at
Oh
tests.
yeah. Oh
That's what
yeah.
they measure their children's success by.
If you're non-graded, and the
We
kids are
do utilize a small online assessment. It doesn't take long, and it breaks down each section of math from number theory all the way to algebraic thinking so they can see the progress in each area.
well, listen, give us a sense of what's the day like at Choice Prep. I mean, if you have a sort of typical day.
So we're actually in a storefront. We're looking for a house so we can have a kitchen, but we don't have a kitchen now. But a day typically looks like the kids come in, they put up their bags, and they start on handwriting. So we start on cursive and handwriting, depending where they are. And then after we finish with that, they start on what we call their computer time. So they use certain curriculums for math, phonics, and language arts. So they get that part of the day done. So after that, me and my assistant, we take information from those programs and we set up around the room with Montessori material and different things like that, and interactive notebooking. We set it up around the room so they have their projects that they need to work on, and they move around the room from center to center, practicing those skills and mastering those skills. And while they're doing that, me and my assistant, we're pulling like one or two kids, and we're doing stuff like uh, phonics, more intervention phonics, or some type of vocabulary skill or reading skill. Now, right now, because of the pandemic, we have two sets of groups. The lower school, which is second through fifth grade, comes in from 8 to 12. We have a 1 hour break to clean up. And then we have our middle and high school students come in from 1 to 5. Monday through Thursday. And it's the same concept with them. The high schoolers do more of project based. They do their computer time during the early part of the afternoon, and then they work on their projects. Some of them actually have some internships that they go out to that we've set up, and they do that like maybe once or twice a week. And besides that, they're either working on some type of publishing project or some type of financial literacy project, but it's a lot of project based that we look at like, because I always want to make sure that if they want to transition back into public school, that they will be exact above or where the public schools are or above. So we do look at the standards to make sure we're meeting the standards, but we don't teach like, to the test or anything like that. We use those standards to create like social uh, social skills, collaborative learning. We do a lot of that, but we do look at the standards to make sure that we're meeting the standards.
Yeah. Give me an example of something that your kids were working on just before the break that
Okay.
people would be, because people, it's like we talk about these big ideas and we're having adaptive technology and the kids have they can work on projects, but then people are always thinking like, well, what's that look like?
Okay, so I'll give you a prime example. For my high schoolers, we had what we call a career research project that we've been working on for a month. So it started out very, very broad. So they had to pick 10 career choices that they felt like they might want to do if they were to finish, college or high school right now. So they picked 10, and then we went through and we narrowed it down to 3. So from those 3, they were given graphic organizers to conduct the research on those particular career choices or career paths. So they had to determine if college would need it, what college would you go to, what college services, those type of career path, how much would it cost to go to that college, how many years of education would you need, what are the perks for this career, what would your salary look like, why do you think that this would be a good fit for you, what do you do now currently that actually reflects this career path. It was like, a very intensive research paper. So after they finished the research, they had to write up a portion of it to why they would consider this a career choice for them. They would choose one of those to write the research paper on. And then after they did all that research, we did what we had several parents come in to actually look and grade. I gave them all a rubric, and the parents came in and they walked around and they graded the projects because they had to do a poster board. And on the poster board, it had to include those graphic organizers, and then it had to include the actual main research paper that was edited by peers first, and then it came to me and my assistant, and then after that, we sent it to some other editors on, actually some professional editors on Grammarly, things that I think they would need as they go off into college. These are, tools that they can utilize. So we showed them what a professional editor would be looking at as well. And we showed them what would be on the rubric, how to read a rubric. And so after we went through the editing process and the writing process, then we made sure those papers were ready to be published and placed in front of their poster boards. And then the parents came around and critiqued. And then we took those critiques from the parents, those sticky notes, and then we looked, and I've let them decide on things where they could improve as far as with their presentation, their paper, because they had to also dress up too. So we had a couple of kids that wanted to be real estate brokers. We had some kids that wanted to be doctors. We had some kids that, wanted to be a cosmetologist. So they had to come dressed the part, and they had to present their board as well. So they had to have some extensive background knowledge in their career. So they worked on speaking, they worked on research paper. Even math was involved, because to design their poster board, they had to measure, so they can make sure they had enough spacing for how they wanted to design the board. And it just was cross-curricular. So those are the type of projects that we work on. So they had to understand,
really comprehensive.
Yes.
Sounds like a lot of work for them and a lot of work for you, but really authentic. I mean, did it's funny because here in Pennsylvania, there's a career awareness standard that our high schools actually struggle to fulfill. Every district goes about it in a different way. So, having your kids just have that as part of the learning that they're doing, and not feeling like it, for so many of our high schools here, it's this thing that gets tacked on to the graduation requirement, and it becomes this difficult thing that you just have to get done, versus it's something fun and engaging and interesting and is getting me thinking about things that I might like to do with my life.
Absolutely. Because I had a lot of students that they wanted certain things, but once they got to get into the research and realize, wait a minute, I didn't realize we had to do this, and I only would probably make this. So where they wanted to be, for example, I had one student that wanted to be a gaming streamer. Once he realized, like, what are the odds and how many people become successful at it and things like that, he's like, well, maybe I can be a real estate broker and do streaming as a hobby. And those are the things that, because I found that even when I was at the other private school, my seniors didn't know what they wanted to do. They had no clue. They were like, what? I don't know. And it's like, well, have you ever thought about it? Have you had this discussion with your parents? And they're like, yeah, but I don't know. So I just think, we started this with 8th graders. So there's 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And it really got them to thinking about, wait a minute. Well, if this is what I need to do, then I need to start now. And I need to start doing things now that will get me in that direction of that career path. So I will be, ahead of just waiting till I'm 18 and then trying to get there.
Yeah. And I think it makes it really authentic, and your students can begin to understand why their studies are important.
Absolutely. And it was just a beautiful thing. The parents were really happy. And then some of the kids went on vacation. So when we come back, we're going to have the rest of the kids do and the parents come back in and do the market again as well. They really enjoyed it. A lot of my kids had never spoke or did a presentation before. So this was their first time, and, just getting them that exposure and experience, they were really impressed with themselves. And they was like, well, next time I know to speak up or stand up straight and, make sure I read over my papers before I start to speak. So it just giving them those experience to critique themselves and, realize what they need to improve on. Instead of me telling them, you need to do this, this, and this, and this, they can realize it for themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, one of the things about micro schools, at least the majority of the ones I've talked to, is, they're really clear about the kid that they serve. And sometimes you'll have people show up who it's not a good fit. It sounds like your kids are fairly self-directed. Some kids need more structure. Let's just say kid comes in, it's not a good fit to come to choice. Are there any other micro schools in your area, or even small private schools or the like, that you know and can recommend, and when it's not a good fit at choice?
Yes, it's it's an all-girl school. and she's structured. She's more on that structure side, but it's an awesome school. I've actually I spoke to her a couple of times. I haven't been to the school, but I've seen great reviews about it. And she's here in Atlanta, and it's Ladies of Favor. She would do great interview. Uh, I can see her building and becoming very big and very soon, because she's just a great school as well. And the young ladies over there are very smart, and they love it. They love it. It's tailored towards building up young women and building that confidence that we need, to go out into this world and face all the things that we have to deal with as being women.
Yeah.
So it's a great school. It's Ladies of Favor
Neat.
Academy.
Well, I have to say, there aren't that many single sex education options anymore. My undergraduate was at an all women's college. I would have never thought to have chosen that for myself, but it's where I wound up. And I do think that part of my confidence and my ability to speak clearly came from the fact that, I was being trained to be a well-spoken young woman.
Absolutely. My undergrad is from a all-girls school as well in Gainesville, Brown University, all-girls school. I truly believe that's why when I walk in a room I don't care who's in the room, I'm confident because I know who I am. I'm confident in who I am, and I'm okay with that. And, I'm okay with if I don't fit everybody. I'm okay with that. And I know that came from my experience at a all-girls school as well.
That's neat. Neat. Well, awesome. 30 minutes always flies by.
I know.
We've actually hit that. And so for all of our listeners, if you're stuck around, if you want to get in touch with Keyanna, please visit her website, which is www.choicepreparatoryaacademy.com. Thank you for listening to today's show. If you'd like to be a guest to talk about your microschool or to share your work in the microschools movement, please reach out to me at mara@microschoolbuilders.com to set up your interview. And until next time, be well.